Doctor, I wanted to speak to you about the difference between dandruff and flaky skin. So sometimes people say, hey, Luke, I have dandruff.
Yeah.
And my dermatologist gave me XYZ. Some people come and say, I don't think I have dandruff because it's just flaky skin. It's not itching me, but it falls down. I know there's a difference. Can you explain this difference, why it happens, and what can we start looking at?
I think sometimes it might get generalized into one category.
Yeah.
But what's very important is that dandruff is a fungal infection. And when I'm looking at flaky skin, I'm likely to identify a dermatitis, which means there's inflammation of the skin involved. Now with a fungal infection, my treatment line becomes totally separate, right? We're going to look at antifungals. We're going to make sure that what is affecting that growth of fungus and halt it there. But when we're looking at flaky skin, it could be the early onset of seborrheic dermatitis. It could be very early psoriasis, which could be limited to the scalp. So it could be just scalp psoriasis, or it could be just a patch of eczema, which has gotten triggered because of wrong chemicals, excessive usage of drying, or any product which you might have applied on the skin which caused those allergies. But it becomes very important to understand that when there is flakiness, there could be a buildup of those flakes. And when that patient starts that itch scratch cycle, it could lead to bleeding and then superimpose bacterial infections. So you should have it identified and nip it in the bud.
Got it. And so you spoke about over drying as well and the change of pH. What can change the pH of our scalp besides drying our hair too much?
So your scalp has a pH like your skin. It's actually the skin continuing, right? So in that sense, your scalp is also producing sebum, which is produced by your hair glands, like your sebaceous glands, and that's giving that layer of lipid. Now, when we overuse our chemicals, use excessively harsh shampoos, that's why this whole new trend came of sulfate-free shampoos, phthalate-free shampoos. That's where the studies came out from, because it was seen that when there was a buildup of these things on your scalp, if it was not thoroughly cleansed, that could cause the irritation of the scalp and alter the pH. Washing your hair with very high hot water, that affects the pH. Wearing a shower cap every day has also shown to affect the pH of your scalp while bathing, because it actually leads to that steam buildup within.
Interesting.
Right? And we all do it. Like everyone likes showers, and you tend to use the shower cap so often, but you'll realize that over time it can actually make your hair brittle.
Okay. All right. So what about hair dryers? When you want to dry your hair quickly and stuff, is that excessive heat also changing the pH?
So now, luckily, there are temperature controlled dryers which with very good brands, but also blast drying your hair and using cold air over hot air would be a better choice.
Got it.
But having said that, in general, your hair has a hydral factor. So the drying part, when the wet hair has to go into the drying phase, that is a time of weakness for your hair, which is why there are separate brushes which are being promoted now for wet hair combing. Because when you comb your hair, when they are wet, they are in their most brittle phase. That's the time the cuticle is open, so it's losing maximum water out.
Wow.
And that's the concept of this whole bubble hair. So you'll see if you allow your hair to air dry, sometimes it has that whole static look.
Okay.
It's because those cuticles remained open and didn't shut, because it absorbed water and it formed those bubbles. So in terms of drying, I would recommend towel drying naturally. And now there are these new concepts of those turbans which you tie on your hair because of that same reason, that the least friction you give your hair when they are wet, the better it is, because that's the time when the breakage will be the highest.
So that air dry, or you can use a cold dryer, which is not a hot blow dryer.
And also just on the length of the hair and at a distance. So not too much of the scalp.
And not too much of the scalp.
So you're not causing excessively over drying. It's like how when water has to dry off your skin, when allowed to dry naturally, it'll move at a certain pace. That's why.
So basically women can, or guys who have long hair, they could put the turban to cover their scalp and then use a dryer to kind of a cold dryer.
So it helps to the settle. And also one more thing which can always help is pre-oiling. So pre-oiling is literally something like what you would do is conditioning. So if you typically see in a salon, when hair masks are applied, they are applied before the wash. And the reason is because the conditioner actually seals that cuticle. So an oil would do the same job for you. It would seal the cuticle of your hair and prevent that water loss from your hair shaft into the environment. So preventing that excessive loss, because your hair, you need a hygrophobic structure. So oil is that hygrophobic which will prevent the water loss from your hair into the environment. And similarly, it works on the skin. But what I do say is, don't oil your hair overnight. Just a 20 minutes or 30 minutes before your head bath helps, because when you leave it overnight, you are also affecting again the pH of the scalp. And typically if someone has dandruff, you could actually be worsening it by providing such a moist environment.
Got it. So you're advising, if we're coming to the topic of oiling, which I will come to, but before that, so what's the best routine for all of us, like just the general audience? to look after our hair? Do I put a shampoo first, conditioner? Do I need a
Yes.
conditioner, man? Like, what are the roles for this?
So honestly, I feel sometimes, depending on your hair strength and your hair density, conditioners can be weighing down sometimes, right? So I prefer the pre-oiling because I feel like that is good enough conditioning for your hair. And after hair wash, maybe using a serum, which is light based, to just seal the cuticle and then drying your hair. At the same time, avoiding, as I said, hot water showers becomes very, very important. And a lot of people believe that, I can't wash my hair every day because they feel that I'm having that much breakage. But what I'd like to clarify here is that if your scalp is dirty and you're washing only twice a week and you're allowing that oil build up, you're actually causing more damage. So you rather wash your hair every day because that doesn't increase your hair loss. It will actually make your scalp healthier and your hair healthier over time. So that is something very, very important. And one simple trick which is difficult to do, but if you go to see rice water, the traditional rice kanji is so rich in ceramides, okay?
And probiotics.
But for the hair specifically, it works like a sealant. So if once a week, maybe you can do the last rinse with the rice kanji, it will work like a rice ceramide rich pack for you.
Wow, that's a beautiful tip. What if I want to wash, not I, but we want to wash our hair every day?
Yeah.
Do we need to use a shampoo every day?
No.
It's interesting because I have a hippie friend and he's now 82 years old, came to Goa at the time of the hippie. He's got dreadlocks, all of that. He's never used a shampoo. Never used a conditioner. Of course, he lives by the sea, eats like natural stuff, the hippie life, but he's only used water.
Yeah.
Only water. So is it really possible to, maybe out of all the days we use shampoo, can I just have a head rinse with water?
So I feel like because we live in so much pollution, a head rinse is compulsory, right? Every single day. But on the days that you do work out or you do have excessive sweating, or suppose you've had a change of environment, like you're traveling from one place to the other, you're exposed to, let's say, a higher AI index than your skin is normally used to, then shampooing and cleansing becomes very important because the built up, like it happens on your skin, is also happening on your hair. And sweat, because of the density, can worsen it. So in that case, you are leading to clogging. So ideally for any person living in a city like Mumbai, I would say you need to use a shampoo twice. But for someone like you said, who lives in a natural environment, even if they were rinsing with water, it would be different for them, right? But I think in general for someone like us in Mumbai or Delhi, using a shampoo, even for men, becomes a mandate at least twice a week to make sure that the scalp is cleansed.
So, doctor, when I get a lot of patients, some of them are from very traditional environments and they come to us with normal issues, but they have this thick, beautiful, natural hair. And I'm always looking like, I ask them, what's your routine for your hair? A lot of them have been speaking about using rock salt. They shampoo their hair, they do like a little scrub, very light scrub with like salt or rock salt. I think that's what they said. They stand in the shower for about 10 or 15 minutes and then they rinse it and stuff. Is it changing your pH? Because I know people do sea baths for so many, for their skin, for their hair. But I've also read reports that it could be quite contradictory. But I just wanted to understand your take on this.
No. So I wouldn't totally rule it off, if you ask me, in my opinion, for two reasons. One, that sometimes your scalp needs that exfoliation. So the salt is actually working as an exfoliation. So it's encouraging new cell growth on your scalp because it's an exfoliant. Secondly, salt in itself is what is used for, it's a mineral, it's used for electrolytes, right? So it causes an osmotic gradient which can actually increase the flow of minerals and blood flow to your hair follicle, and in that sense actually help your hair growth. Now where I am not confident is how soon it acts and whether the people who are using it were actually blessed with good anagen cycles. That means they have a good phase of hair growth and they happen to use this product, and that's where the hair looks really, really healthy and radiant. But I can't totally rule it off because these two factors will always play a role, that it's an essential mineral which will help. And anything that increases blood flow to the scalp, whether it's happening because of the gradient with osmosis, will influence your stem cell production. So in that sense, yes. So maybe not every day, but doing it twice a week could be beneficial. And I think that is where it comes to even what you talk a lot about, charged water and hydration. So consuming water in the right way becomes important. So in that sense, when the water is hitting your scalp, you're also changing the pH because the salt is applied on your scalp.
Oh, that's amazing. Doctor, I also wanted you to break whether it's a myth or a fact. A lot of people with dandruff, a lot of people with that flaky skin have said that, hey, we mixed apple cider vinegar with water, scrubbed our hair, washed it off, and it's disappeared for the next 5 to 10 days. I know apple cider can have a change in pH. Beneficial, not beneficial, or suits different people?
For me, apple cider vinegar is very beneficial.
Very
I say
beneficial,
drink it,
yeah.
apply it, it's always
agree with
good
you on that,
because of the reason. Two, in the
Yeah.
case of dandruff, not only the pH, apple cider vinegar is known to have a fungicidal effect. So if you read up papers, vinegar in its property chemically has fungicidal
Yeah, for
effect.
toe fungus on the
Exactly,
toe,
you
we
do
make
apple
them
cider
soak.
vinegar soak.
Yeah.
So it has a fungicidal action, and
Got
that's how it's working on the dandruff
Ah.
because it's a fungus.
Got it.
And other traditionally used ketoconazole shampoos also really help, and you'll be surprised. There are interesting studies which show that people who are having hair loss sometimes is correlated with dandruff. So the underlying factor could be the dandruff. So when you start with the regular application of those solutions, some of them do show an improvement in their hair loss.
Brilliant, brilliant.